Hey guys, Ningen here bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and for today's video we are going to have a look at what I consider to be the 5 worst categories in Dokkan Battle currently. We are of course going to be talking mainly focused around the global version, because as you know your boy is a proud global main, so I'm not factoring in any of the categories that are not yet on global. And obviously we might talk about some units that will be coming that we know of from JP, but we're not going to specifically talk about categories that are not in the game yet. Now obviously these are my opinions, let me know what you think in the comments if you disagree with me. Now bear in mind, I know some of these categories on this list are able to complete certain events that others might not, but it's more about viability, not just on like specific events, but kind of any event in the game in general, as well as the variety of the team build itself. So let us jump into the first one, or what I should say, number 5. Obviously out of these 5 is the least bad, and then number 1 is the absolute worst in the game in my opinion. So with number 5, this is probably the newest one out of all of them. And it's obviously one that people have been talking about a lot over the last week or so because of the release of the physical Piccolo, and that is the Worthy Rivals category. Now obviously on global we have the awakening for this tech Vegeta here, who gets a 120% to all stats and 3 key leader skill for the Worthy Rivals team. Now that's really useful because it means for people like me who kind of decided to skip the Piccolo banner, like I literally just dropped a couple of multis just to see if we could get lucky, it means I am still able to run this team if I can find a Piccolo friend, which is kind of a big deal. Like it happened on JP as well, where not a lot of people really went in on the Piccolo banner, so it's going to be very difficult to find Piccolo friends if you actually want to run this team. So whether you're someone who did manage to pull him, or you're somebody like me that can just make use of the tech Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, you're still not really going to get to run this team very often, because it's going to be very difficult to find a leader. So but let's say you do find him, let's talk about the team itself. So LRs wise, obviously we've got LR Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, he's like top tier, very good. LR Margin Vegeta, I think he's underrated, I still really like him. I might be biased, he's one of the like very few summonable LRs that I actually have Rainbow, but he is very very good. LR Piccolo kind of gets memed around a lot, is one of the worst LRs in the game. And then of course we have Tien and Chaozu and the Piccolo, the Yamcha and Poir. Now Yamcha and Poir is probably the better of the two. Those two would link really well together, would make an interesting rotation for sure. But unfortunately, even though they are LRs, they're probably not in even in like the top 10 units in this category. So obviously if you play the World Tournament regularly, you probably do have these guys. But the only problem is, unless you are going to run them on a rotation together, they're not going to do a huge amount for the team. Like if they're just floating in the 3rd slot, they're not going to link super well with anyone else on the team. And then as we go down, this is where you start to see the major issue with this category, is we have an odd, you know, we've got the odd Beerus, there's the odd 17 or 18, but the category is basically the Piccolo and Vegeta category. Like if you look at the description, it consists of characters who were once enemies but are now allies, and like the main one is just Piccolo. Obviously we got like Skinny Boo, you know, random unit. It's kind of surprising they gave his name's like completely slipped my mind now, even though he's the god of Dokkan. Bergamo got an awakening and this guy didn't, but there you go. I guess this guy, he's here because it technically is Beerus. Funny that Beerus is on here but not Whis, because Beerus had like the LR Beerus and Whis and the Whis units themselves, because obviously they don't count as enemies that became allies. It's the only category that Pycon is on, which is interesting, at least for now. Obviously, like I said, he will be on the other World Warriors category, but that's only on JP currently. So yeah, you're super limited, because if you actually have the Piccolo and you set him as your leader, that's like half the units that are here you can't use because you already have a Piccolo on your team. I really feel like, and a lot of people said this when he came out on JP, they really should have given this Piccolo another name. Now I know obviously he fuses with Piccolo as part of fuses with Kami as part of his transformation. But I feel like they should have released this as a Piccolo who was already fused with Kami, and then just called him like Piccolo brackets Kami absorbed or something, because then we'd be able to run him and another actual Piccolo, because that cuts out like half the team. And then obviously if you bring a Super Saiyan Vegeta or a Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, that cuts out all the other ones. So you're very limited with how you can build the team, which is very unfortunate considering that Piccolo himself is a very good unit. There's a couple of units on the team that are very good units, but just unfortunately the team itself is really just not that great. So let me know what you think, but that is the number 5 choice. Now, coming in at number 4, we have the Ginyu Force. Now, some of you might wonder why this maybe isn't lower on the list, but like I said at the start, one of the reasons why this team is at number 4 is there are actually a lot of events in the game, in fact most Dokkan events to be fair, that you can actually beat using the Ginyu Force team. Now obviously the team is basically free to play. The 5 main units, the 5 main members of the Ginyu Force are all free to play farmable units. Now obviously as you see they do have like SR versions from summons, but they're all terrible. So the main ones are these free to play ones that you farm up, you awaken. They have their own orbs, so they're all rainbow, which is really nice. And then of course by getting them all and rainbowing them all, the game gives you a copy of the LR Ginyu Goku to use as the leader, because he is the only leader for the team. So obviously this team is very restrictive in like option. Well, it is the most restrictive option in the game, because you're basically always going to be running this guy as the leader. Then if you did get the LR physical Ginyu from the Battlefield shop, who he is good, like by the time he came out on Global he was already super outdated, because on any team outside of the Ginyu Force team he's just a very minor support unit, so you're not really going to use him on a lot of things. He was really good on Extreme Physical back in the Mono era when he first came out on JP, but he just came out a little bit too late on Global I think. So you're going to be running this guy as the leader, then if you have him you're going to be running the physical LR, and then basically you get to choose which one of these guys you drop, so you can run the team of 6 units. And obviously that's largely going to depend on what event you're taking them into. So if you're going into, for example, a Dokkan Festival event against like a tech unit, then you're probably going to take out Berta because he has type disadvantage, and then that would probably apply to all of them. And then when it comes to the Super Battle Road stage for the Ginyu Force, again, I think Berta is probably the one you drop the most, because I think 2 of the 3 fights have a tech unit, I think. Whereas Berta, of course, his main ability is by being in the first slot, which is in Super Battle Road can be very bad when there's multiple attacks, and he doesn't get his dodge ability until after he's attacked himself. So kind of a weird one. Like the team is very restrictive. Like in a way, I guess most people wouldn't be surprised to see this category on the list, but the team is able to beat a lot of events. So like that's probably why I think it's not as bad as some of the other ones that are coming up. So obviously not a lot of people use it nowadays, but once they added all this in the 3-year, you used to see a lot of posts like on the Reddit and stuff of people beating Dokkan events and all sorts of things that came out even after the 3-year using a full Ginyu Force team. And of course the team is essentially free to play, so it was technically classed as like the best free to play team in the game for quite some time. Obviously recently we've been getting a lot more really strong free to play units and free to play LRs, but the Ginyu Force definitely had its day. Another reason I guess why it makes this list is it's a very hard team to make better, because unless they release like a summonable TUR, which I don't think many people would summon for, of any of the members, you can't replace them with anyone else, because the Ginyu Force is only these 5 characters, and then they just kind of get away with it by having the Ginyu Goku to be the 6th one. Now, one thing I think is worth mentioning, at the time of recording I think we're just over a week away, but when Dragon Ball Z Kakarot comes out, we have already seen from the promotional material and stuff that one of the things that's getting added to the canon was that there was a previous female member of the Ginyu Force who quit obviously before all the events on Namek and stuff went down. So because Dokkan pulls units from here, there and everywhere and does various game crossovers, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a card for her in the future, which would finally be another unit that can actually get added to this category. So yeah, it definitely gets marked down in points for how limited it is, but then at the same time it's actually still a good team, which is why it's at number 4. So again, let me know if you agree. Should it be higher, should it be lower? And that is the Ginyu Force category. So then we go on to the World Tournament category. Now this is another one that is very limited. Let's actually double check. I forget what his Awakened leader skill is. So Jackie Chun is the main leader and he only has a 70% leader skill. Now he is a decent unit, but that leader skill is incredibly low. JP recently got this free to play, Yamu and Spopovich, but yeah, theirs is only 50%. So this guy is the main leader and he only has a 70% leader skill. So immediately you can kind of see that's why he is so low down on the list. 70%, like some newer Dokkan events you won't be able to beat. There are Dokkan events that you definitely could beat because the team does have some good units on it. But any of the newer events, like anything like, for example, the Super Stage of Super Battle Road, the Legendary Goku event, like you're not going to be able to beat harder events with this team. Only has a couple of LRs, 2 free to play, and then Goten and Trunks, who are considered quite low on the tier list of summonable LRs. And then they also don't link necessarily well depending on how you build the team, because a lot of these units, obviously their only real link to each other is that they were in the World Tournament. So you've got units like the Super Saiyan 2 Great Saiyaman, he's going to have like no links with Jackie Chun. You know, somebody like Hercule and then like Vegeta Jr., no links. Like, obviously they'll have some links. Super Saiyan, probably prepared for battle, I forget whether he has that. Yeah, it's just very weird. And of course a lot of the units come from the actual World Tournament banner, which even some of the better units from that banner are not that great. There are some gems like hidden in there, like this Saiyaman 2, or sorry, Super Saiyan 2 Saiyaman is a very, very good support unit. So I feel like if you have him, he's like an auto include on the team. The STR Kid Goku with his Awakening is actually pretty decent. This Int Hercule is actually really good. I would say he's the best Hercule in the game. The free-to-play Easy A Vegeta Jr. is good. He's good as well. But like none of them are like top tier units. Even the LRs that are available are not top tier. So you factor all of that in under the fact that they only have a 70% leader skill. And yeah, this team is really not that great. And funnily enough, considering it is the World Tournament category, there's no AoE units, so the team is no good in the World Tournament either, which is, I feel like there's a little bit of irony there somewhere. But this team definitely needs an actual summonable Dokkan Fest leader. I'm not sure who they could do. Probably, I guess, a Goku. Maybe not a Kid Goku, because we have the Int one. We don't want to replace too many good units. And the funny thing is, that Int Kid Goku's not even on here. Which I actually didn't realise until now. That's crazy. So the Int Kid Goku, the best Kid Goku in the game, isn't on the World Tournament category. So that's really bad. So I mean, I guess they could have him as a leader, but I don't think they're going to bring out another Dokkan Fest Kid Goku so soon. Maybe they could do like a Kid Goku and Krillin. But then again, that kind of goes against the... well, I guess we got these two guys. Because the World Tournament fights are obviously all one-on-one. But we do have a couple of Joined Forces cards. So maybe like a Kid Goku... Maybe we could finally see like a Kid Goku and Krillin. For a summonable leader. But yeah, this category definitely needs a summonable leader. This is one that is pretty much no one considers this category. Like this, as you can... I don't think many people would argue that this category deserves to be on this list. So there you go. We're going to jump in now to number 2, and that is the Namekians category. Now, I feel like this is one that people might maybe argue about, because one of the things I don't like about this is how restrictive it is. Now, obviously you could say that about the Ginyu Force, and I've put the Ginyu Force like lower on the list than this team. But that one of the reasons is because the team is so hard to make. Now with the Ginyu Force, they're all free-to-play farmable units, so anyone can make the full Ginyu Force team. Whereas with this team, like, let's discount this. So if you didn't summon on the Piccolo banner, as of time of recording, there are no other banners that you can pull Nail from. So you won't have any of these guys. So your best possible leader is the free-to-play Easy A Piccolo, who has a 77% leader skill. Now when you look down the list, look how many of these units are just Piccolo. So as soon as you pick one of these Piccolo, that's it. That's half of the units here pretty much, like, grayed out. Like, you now can't take them. To run a full Namekians team, you've got like Piccolo, you've got the free-to-play Namekians from Universe 6, you've got Lord Slug, then you've got Kami as a good support unit, you've got the transforming Lord Slug that technically has a different name, then you've got Demon King Piccolo, the Piccolo Jr., because he's brackets giant form from the World Tournament banner, he at least has a different name. And then of course there's the Elder Demon King Piccolo as well. So not including the new Nail, that's like 7 or 8 units with unique names only. So if you're somebody who doesn't do the World Tournament very much, and so you don't get many tickets, and then maybe with the few tickets you have, you've been very unlucky with pulling SSRs, you're not going to have the Elder Demon King Piccolo or the Giant Form Piccolo. Maybe you've got this guy, because obviously since he came out with the Kid Goku, he's been in the general pool. So I think I rainbowed mine fairly recently. But yeah, the team is so unbelievably restrictive. And then of course, even if you don't have the summonable Piccolo, you're probably going to be using this Piccolo as the leader. So you don't even get to take your pick between the other Piccolos of which one you want to use. So yeah, this team is just like, it has potential because some of the units are good. Like the free-to-play Namekians are actually really good on a Namekian team because of the way their passive works. This STR Demon King Piccolo is actually really good, but of course his best team currently is the Dragon Ball Saga. The Namekian, because I'm reading the word come up there, the Lord Slug Giant Form is really good. But obviously, again, he's a giant form leader for if you don't have Tapion. He works really well on that team. He links really well with Super Baby 2 on the giant team. But like, yeah, there's just not a real huge amount of options. Like if you only have to be missing 2 or 3 units on this list, and you basically can't run a full team of 6 units. So that is why this features so highly. And technically in my countdown is the second worst category in the game, in my opinion. Now obviously that does change slightly. Say you pulled this Piccolo and this Nail, then the Piccolo and Nail rotation is really good and very strong, and both units are very good. But then again, who are you then going to run on the next rotation? I guess, like I said, the free-to-play Namekians are good. Maybe you could pair them up with Lord Slug or the Demon King Piccolo, but of course the extreme Namekians don't share a huge amount of links with the super type Namekians, so Lord Slug and Demon King Piccolo would go together quite well. But yeah, it's just a very odd like category, and of course really the fault of that is the fact that there just aren't that many Namekians in the series for them to make units for. I mean, these units, the Universe 6 ones, are the newest ones to have been added, and that's only from the Universe Survival Saga from the end of Super. So unless they do something in the Return of Dragon Ball Super or in the manga where they include some sort of new group of Namekians, this category is probably not going to change much going forward. So yeah, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, it is the second worst category in the game. And so then of course we get to number 1, the worst category in the game, and that is, in my opinion, the low class warriors category. Now again, this is a team that has no summonable Dokkan Fest leader. The only leader is the free to play Raditz, and let's look at his leader skill, shall we? Now you think the free to play Piccolo with his 77%, you thought that was bad. You thought 70% from Int Jackie Chun was bad. Well, how about 4 key and HP and defense 40% and attack 80%? It's not even 80% to all 3 would still be bad, but 40% HP and defense. So of course these are the two that are the most important to your team's survivability. And then attack 80%. Like, even if it was attack and defense 80%, it would at least be slightly better. But yeah, this is probably one of the lowest leader skills that you can use, and it's the only leader. Notice there's no sub leader, there's no summonable leader, there is literally just this free to play Raditz. And then the only LR on the category is LR Bardock. I think he's very underrated. He is actually a good LR. Admittedly, he probably is in the lower half of the tier list, but I do feel like a lot of people put him lower than he should be. But he's the only LR on the category. And then of course the rest of the team is basically the Bardock squad in their various different iterations, Turles in his few versions, and Raditz, the Kid Gokus, and then some of the very early versions of Goku. Essentially the way this category works with Goku is any Goku before the Kaioken, so any Goku that has the Kaioken and onwards, is not in this category. Which I think is strange, because obviously in the fight against Vegeta and Nappa at the end of the Saiyan Saga, Vegeta of course is constantly referring to Goku or even like Raditz for example as a low class warrior, and then Goku uses the Kaioken in that fight and eventually defeats Vegeta. So I feel like at a push we could at least include the Gokus that have the Kaioken into this category, because otherwise they become extremely limited. And then of course some of the better units are the Great Ape versions of the Bardock squad, which ape units in and of themselves are not some of the top tier units. Now the AGL support Turles is in the category, and of course he's one of the best support units in the game. So like him and the LR Bardock, they're good units, but then it slowly starts to go downhill. Ink Kid Goku is actually very good and is quite underrated. He's definitely one of the most recent additions to the team that is actually very strong. But then of course that removes the option to use any of the other Kid Gokus. The Raditz is actually good. So the Raditz unit himself is kind of underrated. Like if you run him on a Goku family team or on a Pure Saiyans team, obviously he is a free to play unit, and he's kind of from that era just before free to play units started to become really strong. But he is actually pretty good. Like if the team got a summonable leader that wasn't another Raditz, then you could probably argue he would probably still work really well on the team. And he is an AoE unit, which can be useful in certain scenarios. But I feel like if we were to get a summonable leader, it could very easily be another Raditz, because it'd be quite fine for him to just take the place of this free-to-play one. Maybe a Great Ape Raditz, because there is the one Great Ape Raditz in the game that I don't think anyone really uses. I guess maybe another Great Ape Turles, because the Great Ape Turles that we have is good, but I mean, he could take his place. Maybe a Great Ape Bardock, I guess, because he is probably a unit that people don't really use. Because the problem is you can't have well, you could, but you don't want to have a base form Bardock as the leader, because then you can't use the LR. A Goku, I think, would be good, because none of these base form Gokus are particularly exciting. Like, I think personally what would be really good, and again I'd like to hear your suggestions in the comments below, but I think we should get a base form Goku from the fight against Vegeta and Nappa, and then he couldn't have an active skill or transformation where he uses the Kaioken. So obviously the starting unit is just the base Goku from that fight. I feel like that's perfectly acceptable for him to still be considered in the low class warriors category. Other than that, like I said, maybe another Great Ape Bardock. I'd be interested to see a card that is Bardock and the rest of his crew, like as one card, if they obviously gave it a unique name. And then something else that they could do to pad out the category is, if you look down, every single unit is a Saiyan. Now obviously low class warrior, I guess it comes from the insult from Vegeta, which was basically referring to like Bardock, well, referring to Raditz and Goku. Bardock is referred to in like the flashbacks and stuff as a low class warrior, which is why they're all here as well. But they could quite easily include some of the low class warriors from other like races, I guess. I mean, like, again, I'm not really sure who exactly that would entail, but like characters from some of the other universes that we saw in the Tournament of Power, for example. I mean, I guess there isn't really any Namekians. Like Nail you wouldn't put in here because Nail was probably the only like top class warrior on Namek during the Namek saga. So I guess there's not really that many places they can pull other units from, but like the fact that every single unit on here technically is also a pure Saiyan is makes it kind of a weird category, because every single unit on it is just in another category. Like, you immediately make this team better by just changing the Raditz for the transforming or Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, because then every single unit is a pure Saiyan and they're all getting a much bigger leader skill. So in that respect, it makes the category kind of irrelevant, because why even bother running the team with Raditz as the leader? You might as well just run a pure Saiyan leader. So, I mean, even like Mars Saiyan, who is obviously technically is Bardock, but is not featured here due to the fact that I guess the actual card, his identity is supposed to be secret. And I guess he wouldn't be considered a low class warrior because the Timebreaker mask gives him such a power boost. But like, his leader skill is technically better than Raditz because it gives more HP and defense. And I'd probably argue that Mars Saiyan is a better unit than this Int Raditz as well. So I think it's very hard to argue that this is the worst category in the game. I definitely want to hear your guys' opinion down below. Do you think any of the 5 that I mentioned are actually worse than this one? Do you agree with the order that I put them in? Or do you think that there is a category that did not make this top 5 that you think should be here instead of one of the other ones? Let me know down below. And again, like I tried to do, I didn't do it for all of them, but if you have any ideas for units that could be added, that could maybe fix the category and make it better, I'd be very interested in all that kind of discussion going on in the comments section down below. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Like I said, I want to hear all your opinions down below. Let's keep the discussion going in the comments section. You can also check out my Twitch or join my Discord. Those links are in the description. And I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.